This is not the first time I've addressed the eisegetical fallacy. The eisegetical fallacy is at its essence often a kind of absence of evidence fallacy. And that's what we're going to be talking about on this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Strictly speaking, eisegesis is when one makes an interpretation based upon what one reads into the text, not what one reads out of the text. In other words, one is making an interpretation from information that is not in the text itself, but where the meaning is being injected into the text. Eisegesis is closely related to the absence of evidence argumentation, in that eisegetical readings are often based upon information that is not found in the text itself. Okay, so let's demonstrate this eisegetical fallacy with some examples. Exodus 2:23, quote, "Now it came about in the course of many days that the king of Egypt died, and the sons of Egypt sighed because of their bondage, and they cried out, and their cry for help because of their bondage rose to God," end quote. Now, you see, this shows that the oppression Pharaoh died after 40 years, and Moses immediately returns to Egypt, right? Another example is from Genesis 41:42, quote, "Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand and clothed him in garments of fine linen and put the gold necklace around his neck," end quote. You see, Pharaoh gives Joseph clothes, so he received a new coat of many colors to replace the one he received from Jacob, because that's his style he's rocking. Kid you not, I really got that one. And the third example comes from Genesis 11:26, quote, "And Terah lived 70 years and became father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran," end quote. See, look, Terah became father at 70. Therefore, Abraham, Nahor, and Haran were born triplets. Amazing. Okay, now all of these interpretations are real life examples I've encountered in the wild. None of this is made up. And in all of these instances, an interpretation was not derived from the text itself, but from what the reader has injected into the text. For Exodus 2:23, there's nothing that states Pharaoh died after 40 years, only that Moses was in exile for 40 years according to Acts 7:30. For Genesis 41:42, this assumes that the garments were varicolored, but that's not mentioned in the text itself. And for Genesis 11:26, there is nothing to suggest that Abraham, Nahor, and Haran were triplets, only that Terah first begot at age 70. That is a cognitive leap derived from an absence of evidence. In conclusion, the eisegetical fallacy is when one, in an absence of evidence, injects one's own interpretation or meaning into a text to create an interpretation that cannot be derived from the text or its context. So it's basically a form of scripture twisting. We can see how that can be very, very problematic, because you're now introducing interpretations to the text that the original author never meant, never intended to be read, and basically just cutting it from whole cloth. Anyway, we hope you learned something and found that interesting. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.